Hey everyone, Jonathan Bailor back. Got an awesome individual with an awesome story to share with you today. He is the CEO of Civilized Caveman Cooking Creations, as well as the best-selling author of Caveman Feast. He is the founder of the website civilizedcavemancooking.com. And he is a man who I also respect because he has been in active duty in the United States Marine Corps since July of 2002. George Bryant, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan. How are you this morning?
Hey, I'm doing really, really well, George. Well, you have a fascinating journey and story regarding diet and exercise. Can you take us through that?
Yeah, of course I can. I'd love to. So I'll warn your readers to get a chair and sit down and hold on for the roller coaster we're about to experience with this one. So just a little brief history. Like Jonathan said, I run the website with the tongue-twisting name of Civilized Caveman Cooking Creations, which kind of started out of a mistake. So I will lead into that from the beginning. So I just was recently medically separated from the United States Marine Corps after 12 years of service due to some injuries that I sustained on deployments, which were interlaced with my weight loss journey and a few concussions from traumatic brain injury and whatnot. So I tried to join the Marine Corps in July of 2001, and I was 16 years old, turning 17, and I was extremely overweight in high school. I had a pretty sedentary childhood. Even though I'd play sports and whatnot, I didn't have much family support when it came to those things. So everything I did was kind of on my own. So I would have to, walk myself to school or any after school sports. I'd have to work to pay for myself. So I wasn't really a fit in with family problems and social services involved in my childhood. So, it was hard with bullying and social pressure. And a lot of that led to weight gain and not knowing much better since we never ate family dinners or anything. So I was relatively overweight most of my childhood. And I tried to join the Marine Corps because I needed a reason to get out of Boston. It was a very, very dark hole for me to stay there and kind of follow in the footsteps of some other family stuff. So I wanted to make a difference and leave. Tried to join the Marine Corps. I walked in the recruiting office and I got laughed at. And it was horrible. It was probably the most humiliating thing ever, just being told that you couldn't do it. You were too fat. You wouldn't make it, blah, 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 blah. Well, I really wanted to leave, and that desperation kind of kicked in, and I worked extremely hard for about a year to get down to weight to where I could ship to boot camp, and my recruiter worked with me, and I was finally able to join. So once I joined the Marine Corps, it kind of started my roller coaster of weight loss. I got down to about, I'd say in high school, I think I remember wearing a size 40 pants, 40, 42. I'm only 5'7", 5'7.5" on a good day. And I was pushing 200 to 210 to 15 pounds most of the time. We got me down to about 180 to ship to boot camp, and they'd let me go. And then off I went. I did my boot camp thing. I graduated first out of 1,000 recruits, which was great. And I got down to a soaking wet 153 pounds of a wet noodle, I would like to say. And started my career in the Marine Corps. I started training. I joined the Marine Corps in 2002, and I was doing the standard run a lot, stay in shape, be the fastest guy in the Marine Corps thing. And then in 2003, I found out I was getting ready to deploy to Somalia, and it was only supposed to be for 7 months. Well, in 2004, I left, and it ended up being for just over 13 and a half months. And while I was there was really nothing to do. Minus work. So I started bodybuilding, and I got into amateur bodybuilding and lifting and just literally eating and lifting. And I got myself up to about 220 pounds. And that was all fun and great and hunky-dory until it was on my 21st birthday in Somalia. I had both of my legs explode. I had exercise-induced compartment syndrome that was exacerbated by the amount of weight I was carrying on my frame. Pretty much what happened was I was running to a helicopter at the end of a mission, and my legs felt like shin splints. And I ran through them because I didn't have much of a choice, and all of a sudden my legs went numb. And that was the last thing I remember. When I woke up, both my legs were actually ripped open, and all the pressure was pumped down to my foot and the compartments in my calf, and I had nowhere to escape. So it just kept pushing more blood down until eventually the fascia and the compartments in my leg burst and tore my skin open. So I got medically evacuated. I had 6 surgeries over the course of 6 months and spent just over 12 months in a wheelchair, and which then pursued with 18 months of physical therapy. So that 12 months in a wheelchair, 220 pounds of muscle turns to 260 pounds of fat relatively quickly. When you are completely sedentary, you're pumped up on a PCA pump and pain pills for 6 months. So that's where I became my heaviest that I had ever been in my entire life. So when I was getting ready to start physical therapy, I was 260 pounds, just miserable, didn't really want to do anything. And I met this really awesome physical therapist, very young woman. She was a very active triathlete, did Ironmans. And I pretty much envied her. And she put me in my first pair of Vibrams back in 2005 before anyone knew what they were, my little 5-finger shoes, and started my rehabilitation on my legs. And they had told me that I would never walk again. I would never run again. I would never be able to play sports. I would pretty much just be confined to a cane or crutches for the rest of my life, which I didn't like that answer. So we spent about 18 months working together, and we used my therapy as a platform to train for me to do my first ever triathlon. So after 18 months, I got to a point where I was all set and able to do these things, and I got my first triathlon done. I remember doing a sprint triathlon. I did it. I came in 53 minutes, and I placed like third in my age group, and I kind of was hooked because it was great. I was throwing it in everybody's face that told me I couldn't do it again, that told me I'd never be able to walk again. And here I was, full recovery, kind of really pushing the boundaries and doing the thing. So I spent about 2 years while I lived in Hawaii doing triathlons. I did the Honolulu Marathon, and then I did a half Ironman, and it was fun and all was great. And then I moved to California, got stationed in Camp Pendleton, and I was getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan again. And I stumbled across these crazy people doing this thing called CrossFit, which, that was a whole nother realm of insanity, in my opinion. And I was introduced to that a couple weeks before deployment. I deployed to Afghanistan, started doing CrossFit out there. And then I was actually, reading, I was on Post one day and I stumbled across Rob Wolf's book. And for people that don't know who Rob Wolf is, he's a best-selling author of the Paleo Solution, the original human diet, which is the principles and the food lifestyle that I kind of follow. So I just try and eat a minimally processed, no grains, no legumes, and no dairy diet. So I stick to what's in season, fresh fruits, nuts, seeds, meats, vegetables, pretty much what a caveman with modern technology would have eaten. So I stumbled across this book and I was hooked. And, having an entire life of a journey roller coaster of weight loss, I was like, the principles in this thing are just too easy to make sense. Like, there's no way that I'm going to lose weight, that I'm going to feel better, that I'm going to get any of that by eating this paleo diet or like Caveman did. There's no way. Like, you're not going to tell me that doing my carb loading or eating my chicken breast and broccoli isn't going to be the same as this, and I'm going to get success with it. So I stayed in Afghanistan for about 8 months, and I tried to do the best I could eating paleo principles out there, but not knowing or not being able to control what food you get or when you get food, or when you're out of the wire on a convoy for 48 hours and you don't have food, it's kind of hard out there. So I got back to the United States in March of 2011, and I'm like, I'm going to do this paleo thing. I'm going to do it full time. I'm going to give it my all and see what happens. And I was about 180 pounds, 185 pounds. I took 30 days off, didn't work out, and I just went paleo. And I was amazed because at the end of 30 days, I had the first six-pack I'd ever seen in my life. I didn't even think one existed on my body. It was ridiculous. I was like, I thought I woke up and I got airbrushed in the morning, or I fell asleep with lines on my stomach, because it was just insane to me. No working out. I was eating as much steak and pretty much bacon as I wanted, loaded with some vegetables. And I felt better. I had more energy. All my allergies went away. My migraines were reduced. Like, everything was just amazing. And I was like, wow, there's something to this. Well, that's when I thought of the website. I had never heard of a blog. I had never taken a food photograph. I had never cooked, period. I mean, I was a Domino's large pepperoni with ranch dressing kind of guy in my previous fat days. So I was like, I need to figure this out. And I was like, I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to do any of this. How am I going to stay accountable? So I was like, if I start a blog, I have to write on it every day. Like, I have to tell people what I'm eating or tell myself what I'm eating. And it was accountability for me. So I started the website, and I would literally take iPhone photos of my meal, and I would go on Google and watch YouTube videos and figure out how to dice a vegetable or how to cook an onion, or I mean, even as simple as like how to properly hard boil or cook an egg, and how to grill chicken breast. You name it, I learned it off YouTube and Google with my $40 a month education from Google University. And that's where the website was born. And, fast forward 2 years, and, now I am a professional photographer. I've done a cookbook. I'm working on other projects right now. I get, 2 million views a month on my website, and people come make these recipes that I come up in my crazy head that they think are delicious too. And, I'm the happiest and healthiest I've ever been. And I've managed to do it just by simplifying things and sticking to a few basic principles. And it's had a huge impact on my life all around. The weight roller coaster's gone. The hormone dysregulation is back in check. So I don't have any mood swings. I don't get sugar cravings anymore. And most importantly, and something I mentioned on my website a couple months ago, which you may have read, and we could probably link in the show notes, was I was bulimic for 12 years. And that's a hard pill to swallow when I tell people. You see this bald, tattooed, muscular guy now that was an active duty Marine for 12 years. And I have to tell them that my entire career I was bulimic. And paleo for me in this whole health journey and transformation was the key to my success. And I don't want to say beating it or overcoming it, because I feel like it's something that is always going to be with me, but I love myself more than I ever have. I'm more comfortable in myself than I ever have. And I'm willing and ready to share my story with people so they can understand that they can take control of their health and their life and be happy and not be constrained to the prison that we like to label with food, where you have to eat every 2 to 3 hours, or you have to eat this many macronutrients or micronutrients or anything that confines you to making it a stressful situation, which, in turn, we all know increases your cortisol and all that bad stuff. So I'm just out there willing to share my story to anyone that wants to listen or ask me questions, and trying to make a difference in the world.
George, and we certainly appreciate that, because it is an amazing story. And I want to dig into you right at the end there. You mentioned that you talked about this seemed like such a simple approach, just eating these things found in nature. Just if it's found in nature, it's good. And if it's not found in nature, generally speaking, you should avoid it. Why did that empower you so much? I mean, it's so simple, but it seems like it unlocked you not only physically, but emotionally. Why do you think that happened?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually an amazing question, because it's funny when, we do a lot of this self-reflection thing, and you think about things and you go over your life when you're trying to figure out where to go next. And I've thought a lot about that. And I think it's because for so long, starting at such a young age, I was there to kind of fend on my own. And, you jump onto bandwagons and cliques, especially when you're impressionable as a young kid. So, when I wanted to do sports in high school, I jumped on whatever the football players were doing, whatever they did in the weight room, I did, whatever lift they did, or whatever running program they did, or however they ate, and then, I remember football days, like every Tuesday we'd go out to Old Country Buffet, and it was eat as much as possible, so you had energy for the game on Thursday night or whatever kind of stuff that they convinced you to do. And then, when I joined the Marine Corps, the Marine Corps I credit to my determination, my drive, my discipline, and sparking the fitness bug in me, because it was my job, for 12 years, was to stay in tip top peak shape so I could deploy to anywhere in the world on minutes notice. So, they kept me, keeping my 3 mile time under 18 minutes and being able to do 30 pull-ups and all that fun stuff. But it was always so complicated. You would go to these classes, and I used to work at Gold's Gym as a personal trainer, and I used to shove down the nutrition advice about, eat whole grains and do this and portion this out and have this huge sugary meal after a workout and all this stuff. And it was so confusing, and there was so much conflicting information out there for so long that it really just became a stressful situation, and I never enjoyed food anymore. And I think that's a lot of people get away from it, because if we were to go back, let's go back to, Jack LaLanne, what an awesome dude, what an amazing role model, inspiration for so many people for so many years. He had it right, he was eating fresh food, whatever he could get from a farm or a farmer's market, whatever, just doing body weight workouts at home. And that guy was mastering that stuff like 60, 70 years ago. And then you go back to before him, and before genius marketers existed and before supplement companies existed and before, subsidized foods existed. And it was really simple. Like the food that you got, you either grew or you went to your local farmer or your farmer's market or your butcher shop and you picked it up. And, the cases of the things that we have running rampant these days, like type 2 diabetes or cancer or, inflamed every other condition that is autoimmune based out there, didn't have the prevalence that it does now. And when you really take a step back and look at it, like every single commercial you see, every single billboard you see, every time you walk in the grocery store, it is designed to sell you certain products. Like there's a science that goes into laying out the grocery store. I mean, you walk in and things are where they are for a reason, because there's genius people that study the layouts to figure out how to get you to buy what they want you to buy. And that's why they're designed the way that they are. And it shouldn't be that way. You should be in control of your own health and your own food choices. No one should tell you, and no one should convince you, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. So for me, it's like, I don't want someone telling me what to eat or how to eat, whether they're doing it directly to my face or through, subliminal advertising or marketing. I want to be in control because my body is what's going to tell me how I feel or how I'm doing with that particular food or, that particular lifestyle of eating. So once I kind of realized that, I was like, I wasn't in control for so long. I was eating lean cuisines, or I was buying chicken breast because someone else did it, or I was eating a jar of peanut butter because someone told me it would make me bigger, or I was drinking chocolate milk post-workout because someone told me I needed sugar and protein and bone health and all this other stuff. And when I removed what everybody else was saying and I started listening to my body, it was just extremely empowering. And it was the most success that I ever had with any eating style that I've ever adopted. And I felt better than I ever have. And it was the easiest thing there. And it was just really removing all the outside influences and taking a logical, grounded approach to it.
Wow, George, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It seems like, just to, and correct me if I oversimplify this, but it seems like there was really two components. One was the core message of just eat things found in nature is simple, and one that is, it's as applicable in any context, right? It's not like you need to think differently when you're in the grocery store versus when you're out with friends versus this versus if it's Tuesday or Thursday or Wednesday or Saturday. It doesn't matter. If it isn't found in nature, you're going to try to say, nope, I want to eat something that is found in nature. So that is just simple, and it's applicable everywhere. And then because that's so simple and because it's so intuitive, and fortunately, because it has so much science backing it, when you start to apply that, and when you take ownership for applying that, and you see those results, you start to build this cycle where you maybe gained some self-confidence. And then it's a virtuous cycle that just perpetuates itself and propels you to create amazing websites in 2 years.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I mean, you're directly nailing it. Like a lot of people, I mean, like you, I believe, like, I mean, you go to these paleo things, these primal things, you're friends with all the people in the industry, the same people I am, but we all hammer the same things, and we try and get the messages across to people. And like, one of my biggest things is people don't understand that digestion doesn't start in your stomach. It starts in your brain. And people don't understand that, and they don't correlate the stressors in their life and the lifestyle that they lead and how it has a negative or a positive impact on their health and the way that they use and operate with food. And, the simplification of all this stuff, yes, it's making it easier for me to make food choices and making it easier for me to cook meals, but it's also keeping me in a very, very rest and digest state of life to where I am optimized to get my food, and my body is optimized to get the most out of it, vice running around in this increased cortisol fight or flight mode where my body's just sending it to vital organs and processes in my body, and the rest is getting flushed out. And it really is the simplification of it all that had this huge dramatic rolling effect where the snowball started, and everything just kind of grew in exponential manners around it, that it was nothing but positivity. Like it started with, let me eat simple, and these simple things help me create simple recipes, and these simple recipes help me feel better. But now that I feel better, I can better tackle my day. I don't have brain fog anymore. I don't crash in the middle of the day. I don't have dysregulated glucose. I'm not getting sugar spikes and insulin resistance. And I have more energy to work out, and I don't have to work out as often because I feel better and I'm sleeping better and my allergies are gone. And once you start feeling like $1 million like that, like you said, the self-confidence just goes through the roof, and you just become like this proponent for health and these awesome lifestyle choices that you don't even realize you're doing. And, like you're just evangelizing just from walking around and being a testimony to taking control of your own health. And I think it's absolutely amazing. And I support it all day.
George, it's so important to really hammer home those two very related things we've been talking about. And that's one, once you do achieve success, certainly that helps to feed the system and to perpetuate further success. But if the system you're trying to use, or the diet or the exercise program, is stressing you out, like if it is complex and it is making you feel bad, it is literally counterproductive, even if it is causing you to temporarily eat more nutritious foods. If it is this dogmatic, very stress-inducing thing, it is net negative. And I think maybe that's what's so appealing, what we're talking here about, taking this simplified approach, which is just eat the way we ate before we had all these problems. It intuitively makes sense because billions of people have eaten that way and not had the problems we've had. And if you can just trust, and it's hard, it almost has to, there's all kinds of science, you and I know that, but as you said, we get bombarded with marketing day in and day out that at some level we just have to trust that this can't be complicated, give ourselves the permission to live a life of a simple health and fitness if we can just trust and execute on. If it's found in nature, basically eat that. And if it's not found in nature, meaning if someone has diddled with it, be cautious, right?
Exactly. It's no different. Like a lot of people with parents or their own health that like to take things into their own life in consideration. Like if someone walks up to you and they're like, "Hey, try this," or you're like sick and you're like, "Hey, I don't feel good." They're like, "Hey, take this pill." You're not just going to take the pill. You're going to ask them what's in it, what it's for, where they got it, and I feel like more people need to do that with their food, because people will just blindly walk into grocery stores and buy these things that are boxed and packaged and last for 2 years on your shelf, and they never really ask why to know what's in it. And it's no different. You could be getting poisoned in food just like you'd be getting poisoned with medication. And if people think about it like that, because your food for your body is your fuel. Like I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you were to go put oil in your gas tank of your car, it's not going to run. If you pour sugar down there, it's not going to run. If you pour water down there, it's not going to run. So you take care of your car because it gets you from A to B every day. But yet we ignore and we don't understand our own vessel, which gets us through the day for the 16 to 18 hours that we're awake, and we don't fuel it like we're supposed to. When you got to pee, you pee. When you're tired, you go to sleep. When you got to sneeze, your body sneezes. But yet we ignore the signaling that our body provides us. When you're hungry, a lot of people ignore it because marketing tells you to only eat, at certain times of the day. Or when you're not hungry, you force yourself to eat because someone told you should eat every 2 to 3 hours. Or, when you're hungry, you stop eating because someone said that you're eating too much. And it's really mind-boggling to me how we can listen to everything else that our body tells us, but the one thing that provides us fuel to make it every day is the one thing that we don't trust and don't have the confidence and the instincts in our own body's ability to trust. And that's like one of the things that I'm trying to bridge the gap with people here. I'm like, you got to take a common sense approach to it. Like you can't listen to your body half the time and then ignore it the other half of the time. Like your body gets sick because it's telling you it's fighting a disease or an infection or something. So you start healing yourself, whether it's drinking kombucha or making bone broth or going to see a doctor. But yet when you're hungry, you don't eat and you ignore it. And what do you think you're doing to your body? You're suppressing its natural ability to tell you what's going on and what's wrong. And you're messing with the system. And I think people need to take the same approach to their health and their bodies, regardless of whether it's, a sickness or whether it's hunger or whether it's, signaling to sneeze or allergies. Like they're all tied to your body, and you need to really, really be honed and connected to that.
George, it's very clear that you have spent a lifetime thinking about and embracing and really just reflecting a lot of dietary and in lifestyle and emotional wisdom. And I appreciate that you can hear it in your voice and certainly everything you're saying. I couldn't state any better, so I'm not even going to try to. So what's next for you, George?
Yeah. So, this is my website. Like I mentioned earlier, it started as an accountability measure for me. And I've realized over, the past 2 years, and especially recently, that I have this ability to touch hundreds of thousands of people just by teaching them how to make really, really good food, which kind of gateways right into their health. And, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. I love my fans. I love my website. I love my social media. I mean, I run everything by myself. I don't have assistants. I don't do anything. I just am glued to my phone every day because I love interacting with people. Like, I love the emails I get. I love the comments on Facebook I get. I love all that stuff because people are just empowering themselves, which are then empowering others, to kind of attack this journey, whether it's, getting off their diabetes medication or reducing the symptoms of epilepsy or reducing the symptoms of their child's autism or anything like that. Like, it just fuels me to keep going. So I'm literally just going to keep working as hard as I can to get more recipes out there and more tips and tricks out there and more how-tos to teach people how to cook and get a bigger social media presence. And I just share everything I can with people, whether it's coupons or free stuff or giving them away KitchenAid mixers or grass-fed beef or gift certificates just to keep them excited about this, to keep the ball rolling in the healthy direction. So on my horizon is really just to kind of go full bore and go full time on this website and just keep it going.
George, well, I personally am very excited to see that because you are an extremely passionate and extremely wise individual. And folks, if you haven't seen George's website, please do check it out. It is civilizedcavemancooking.com. And also on that website, you can check out his cookbook, which, George, I believe is titled Caveman Feast. Is that correct?
Caveman Feast. Yeah, just a quick plug for that one. So it's an ebook. It's 215 recipes right now, but once you buy it, you get lifetime updates for free. So my goal is to make it end up being about 500 recipes or so. So I'm working on an update right now, which I'm adding 20 more, and that's going to get emailed out to everybody that's already bought it. So the price isn't going to change. The value is just going to keep going up and up and up.
Well, George, I can tell, I feel like we've got a little bit of a connection here because I hear in your voice, and this is certainly something that wakes me up in the morning, that this is about much more than nutrition and exercise at this point. It's about literally saving lives. And you are a perfect example of how taking this simple and sustainable and scientific approach really did save your life. Is that fair?
Yeah, that is 100% bullseye. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. It's because my own testimony myself is the fuel that keeps me going, and it's kind of hard for me to package it sometimes and not come off so dogmatic or crazy paleo guy running around, because it has had such a profound impact on my entire life that I am just so excited about it. I mean, I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to package it. I just want to give it to people. Like, I just want to share my excitement. So I found that just, sharing my story when asked and leading by example is the best gateway for people. And, eventually once that ball starts rolling and they dip their toe in the water, they eventually want to dive right in, and hopefully we can just keep spreading that message.
Absolutely. And being that change you want to see in the world is certainly the most potent form of encouragement one can provide. And I also would encourage our listeners to hear what George is saying and to go check out his website and to use that as fuel to realize that this is, again, it's about so much more than just that number on the scale. And once you can transcend that and think about this more in terms of rediscovering and saving your life, right now, George, it doesn't seem like this is a struggle for you. It seems like you want to do it and you love it. And I believe that's part and parcel because for you, it's not about the scale anymore. It's about being the most glorious George Bryant you can be, and that will get you up in the morning. Worrying about what the daggone scale says will not. What do you think?
Exactly. You are 100% correct. It's funny. I actually posted a photo on my Instagram 2 days ago that said I never step on the scale because the scale doesn't measure sexy. And I think that is the best quote I've ever heard, because you can't let a number dictate how beautiful you are. A scale doesn't measure your character. It doesn't measure your morals. And it certainly doesn't measure how beautiful you are as a person inside or out. And the best thing I ever did was get rid of mine. I couldn't tell you even within 5 pounds how much I weigh because it just doesn't matter. You know, I feel amazing, and happening just by chance when I feel amazing is when my body is the least stressed, and it gives me the leanest look I've had, or feels or stronger than I've been. But it really is just an example of how healthy I am on the inside, and my body is showing me that on the outside. So, I mean, you nail it right on the head. I can't say it any better. So I'm just going to give you a +1 on your statement, because I'm not going to reiterate what you mastered.
Well, thank you, George. Well, folks, hopefully you've been inspired by George here on this call, and hopefully you'll go get educated and empowered by George again at his website, which is civilizedcavemancooking.com. George, thank you for all that you do, all that you represent, and for sharing your time with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Jonathan. I appreciate it.
And listeners, thank you so much for joining us. And remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. Talk with you soon.